Hi, thank you for coming. Thank you, Strand, for having us. So I just want to say a few words about the book. This book was sort of born out of many conversations that Brett and I had over the years about what poetry meant to us as teenagers. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that poetry does, well, if it probably more than changes some lives, it saves lives. So with that in mind, we made this anthology for teenagers, but we also know that teenagers are more than capable of understanding and responding to poems that were written by adults for adults. So these are all contemporary working poets that the teenagers can connect to. And if you look in the back of the book, you can find their biographies and their Twitter handles, and you can annoy the hell out of them. So we have 5 readers who are poets in the book here today. And Brett is going to introduce our first reader, but first he is going to read a poem from the book. Thanks.
I'm going to start with a poem by Ben Lerner. It's called From the Lichtenberg Figures. And everyone can hear me, right? Yeah. I'm going to kill the president. I promise. I surrender. I'm sorry. I'm gay. I'm pregnant. I'm dying. I'm not your father. You're fired. Fire. I forgot your birthday. You will have to lose the leg. She was asking for it. It ran right under the car. It looked like a gun. It's contagious. She's with God now. Help me. I don't have a problem. I've swallowed a bottle of aspirin. I'm a doctor. I'm leaving you. I love you. Fuck you. I'll change. So definitely for kids. And I'm going to introduce the first reader, Mark Bibbins. Mark Bibbins has published 3 collections of poems. They don't kill you because they're hungry. They kill you because they're full. The Dance of No Hard Feelings and the award-winning Sky Lounge. He teaches in the graduate writing programs of the New School, where he co-founded Lit Magazine, and Columbia University. He lives in New York and edits the poetry section of The All. Mark.
Hi, thanks Brett, and thanks Lynn. I know how much work goes into a project like this, and I would never try to undertake such a project as this for that reason. I also don't feel like I've ever written for adults. But, so I'm going to read 2 poems by not me and then one by me. The first is called Sonnet by Srikanth Reddy. I was cold. You wove me a mantle of smoke. I was thirsty. You sent me a cloud in a crate. You sent me a note. You sent me a crate in a crate with a note saying, bury this. So I struck off with my shovel and never came back. When the digging was over, I buried my shovel. I buried it deeper, tendered my prospects to dusk. Some men will make a grave out of anything. Anything. It depends on how lonely they get. Times when a body could dig clean through the night. And this one is by Heather Crystal, and it's called Acorn Duly Crushed. Dear stupid forest. Dear totally brain-dead forest. Dear beautiful, ugly, stupid forest, full of nightingales, why won't you shut up? What do you want from me? A train is too expensive. A clerk will fall asleep. Dear bitchy, stupendous forest, trade seats with me. Now it is your birthday. Congrats! Someone will probably slap you about the face and ears. Indulgent municipal forest. Forest of scarves and of beards. Dear rapid, bloodless forest, you are talking all the time. You are not pithy. You are like 8,000 swans. Dear nasty pregnant forest, you are so hot. You are environmentally significant. Men love to hang themselves from your standard old-growth trees. Don't look at me. You're the one with the ancient noble terror. Bad forest, forest with important gangs of leaves. Dear naive forest, what won't you be admitting? Blunt international forest, forest of bees and of hair. You should come back to my house. We can bag drugs all night. You can tell me about your new windows, how they are just now beginning to sprout. Mine is called Concerning the Land to the South of Our Neighbors to the North. How does it feel, Hawaii, to be first for a change? The state bird of Delaware flies too fast to be identified. See, it's already over Nebraska, booming a sonic boom. Comprised of two ovals, Michigan is known as the Infinity State. Illinois has some imposing adult stores along the railway. West Virginia was made overseas and brought to us chunk by chunk aboard container ships. During his final days, Hiram Warren Johnson, governor of California from 1911 to 1917, subsisted on scorpions and grapes. No one could have foreseen what a handful Utah would become, influenced as it is by the contrarian zephyrs of New Hampshire, 3 states away. Scientists predict that Colorado will soon be an archipelago, though not in our lifetime, and Florida shall turn dusty as the Necco wafers scattered nightly across Massachusetts. It is the custom in Maryland to honor the Stegosaurus on Stegosaurus Day. Not even the kimchi of Oregon can rival the kimchi produced in South Dakota. Knock, knock, who's there? Texas, Texas, who? No, just Texas. Before it was written, my novel was banned in Rhode Island on account of the unions. New Jersey, did you know that one of your shoulders was queer? The night sky over Iowa resembles flannel, the moon a fluctuating stain. Engorged fleas of Missouri bounce across the land, crushing all in their path. Has anyone seen Tennessee? It was here a minute ago. Nevada has kind of a shitty homepage, but not as bad as that of Arkansas, which lists deposit to inmates' bank accounts as one of its top 5 online services. Washington is rich in natural anagrams. In the deep and frigid caves of Arizona live fish that started out in Kansas and got lost on their way to the sea. Wearing boxer briefs in Oklahoma will net you a $40 fine, while the penalty for mixed metaphors in Vermont is garroting. Of course, if you're heard saying "you go girl" in Alaska, that's 2 months community service. Minnesota, can we borrow some brown sugar? Indiana has a tail. Jesus, a tail. As in Andorra, the main environmental hazard of Pennsylvania is avalanches, while overgrazing has decimated nearly half of Maine. New York remains, alas, the only state without a capital. South Carolina sure looks delicious, appears on every license plate in North Carolina. Wisconsin blames its financial woes on shady investment deals involving a chain of make-your-own scrapple emporia. And trust me, you do not want to get arrested in Georgia. Nothing else sticks in your teeth like Wyoming's nostalgia. The limbo, thought by many to have been invented in Louisiana, can in fact trace its roots to New Mexico. Existential and Persnickety are small towns in Ohio, and would you believe the state fish of Montana is the black-spotted cutthroat trout? Idaho. Mississippi means Gesundheit in Esperanto. Satellite images of North Dakota looked pretty much like you'd expect, and one can only avoid Virginia for so long. Speaking of arcane delicacies, Pee Wee Valley, Kentucky, population 1,436, is famous for a dish called leather pie. Well, this is the first I've heard of Alabama. Connecticut, we're sawing you in half.
So exciting. I feel like the book's coming alive. I'm next going to introduce Alex Dimitrov, who is the author of Begging for It.
Thank you to Lynn and Brett for doing this book. Wish I had it when I was a little gay and suicidal. Now I'm just a little gay, so. I'm going to read 3 poems by friends. Emily Kendall Frey, who is a Portland poet. Her poem is called Let a Room Be as Dark as Possible. They all seem a little dark, but they're kind of uplifting, sort of. When the city is rotting against the West Hills, I remember I have not suffered much after all. Mornings when the river pulsed by full of spiders, I woke to a not dying rosebush. The planet won't die in my lifetime. I can get over the disappointment if there are strawberries on the walk to work. All that time on a small couch, the neighborhood not caring at all. You fuck yourself late at night, thinking of someone just beyond imagination. 3rd grade teacher minus the smell. Tom Hanks are an equally partially comforting presence. Hair, bottles, infections, healable, yellow flowers lining the highway. Oh, you think it doesn't matter, knowing that it does, so you take pictures, sleep almost instantly. Your clothes seem to belong to a sibling you never had. Walking the river, defiant as hairstyles, moving into and next to gender. Looking for the one book, the longest tome, insect smashed in its pages, feathered language, heavy as freedom, moving just faster than your brain, an endless and difficult horizon you'll not reach from this side, as long as life keeps you, a tiger in its mouth. This is called The Wait for Cake by Melissa Broder. You have mixed feelings about suicide prevention. If a person wants to go, why not let her go? Then again, there might be another way to live she hasn't considered yet, and a stranger to impart these choices in a voice paved with old potted coffee. It's like that Bluff Point wedding you wanted to leave, before they served the cake. Your ride was ready to split, but the fat girl in your party had never tried cannoli cake. Well, damn her for wanting, and damn you for saying, the fat girl. She wasn't fat on the ride up when you talked about Hart Crane and Kurt Cobain, and which one was sexier, drowning or shooting. Hanging is righteous if you can swing it, she said. You liked her then, but an agreement had been made. 10 p.m., cake or no cake. You knew nothing of the catering boy with a steel stud through his tongue, fingering a packet of pills. He watched you scowl at the garter toss, mouth wet with little lemon sorbets and broiled fish. When a person wants to go, why not let her go? Stay for cake and get kissed. I love that ending because I can just picture Melissa writing it. So, this is Untitled by Deborah Landau. Dear someone, I have nearly completed your disappearance. I spent all night collecting your photographs and cutting them up. A little black hair, a little lip and finger. Close your eyes, only your little time here and you breathing. No steps in the hallway, only your horizontal bones laid out on the bed. Look, it is early winter. The doors are open. You are floating alone in the cold blue. These are the hours of blankness. All the walls are bare. Thanks.
It's really strange to hear all the poems because I don't think we didn't read them to each other. I mean, that would be totally normal practice, but it wasn't what we did. I'm going to introduce Dorothea Lasky. She is the author of Rome, as well as Thunderbird, Black Life, and Awe. She is a co-editor of Open the Door, How to Excite Young People About Poetry. And she is an assistant professor of poetry at Columbia University School of the Arts. She lives in Brooklyn.
Well, I just wanted to echo what everyone was saying, how exciting it is that we have this anthology. I know that I would have really loved to have it when I was young. That's the only sad part. But thankfully, all the little us's will enjoy all these poems. And I thought I would start with the poem I wrote that, of course, like Lynn and Brett were saying, wasn't written when I was a teenager, but was maybe written with an adolescent emotional state, which I think is the best kind. And it's called Jacob. I am sick of feeling I never eat or sleep. I just sit here and let the words burn into me. I know you love her and don't love me. No, I don't think you love her. I know there are clouds that are very pretty. I know there are clouds that trundle round the globe. I take anything I can to get to love. Live things are what the world is made of. Live things are black, black in that they forgot where they came from. I have not forgotten, however, I choose not to feel those places that have burned into me. There is too much burning here, I'm afraid. Readers, you read flat words. Inside here are many moments in which I have screamed in pain as the flames ate me. And the next poem I'm going to read is by Angela Veronica Wong, and it's called New York Boys, I Miss Kissing Your Faces in the Backseat of Cabs. We all can relate to that. But it is spring now, so that, you know, and there are plenty of cabs. So, dudes, it is possible that I will make out with you after reading your poetry, but then I've kissed some unforgivably awful musicians. Liesel asked me if I knew how many hours she spent watching some guy mess around on his guitar. I wish this question weren't so relevant to my life. Maggie packed body glitter when she moved to Paris, and Amy is just fantastic. I found hairspray here and already feel more grounded. When I was younger, I hoped to grow up and spend a day on far Rockaway Beach talking about how much I like morning sex. The bang situation in Asia is serious. Years ago, we spent a weekend with ghosts in the mountains. The Ouija board made us promises. I hope we wrote them down. Living is only leaving in the context of returning. I messed that up. Leaving is only leaving in the context of returning. The letters I sent out can stay unacknowledged. And the third poem that I'll share with you tonight is by Farid Matouk. It's called July. We drive the parkway, fun skimming the tops of trees salt my palm. An edge for first contact settlements. Everybody's house is ugly. Dump the mirrored sideboard on the lawn. Roam the earth, local lanes going faster. Forget this American freedom. If we were on a train right now, we'd be fucking in the bathroom. Thank you very much.
This is like the most fun you've ever had. Our next reader is Ada Limon, and she's the author of 3 books of poems. Her 4th book, Bright Dead Things, is forthcoming from Milkweed Editions. She teaches at New York University, Columbia University, Queen's University of Charlotte, and the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center. She lives in Lexington, Kentucky, Sonoma, California, and Brooklyn, New York.
Thank you. I will say also that I wish I had this book when I was growing up, because, you know, we all had to sort of find the Sharon Olds poem and be like, I think she's talking about a penis. But that was really helpful, too. That was really, really helpful. I'm going to start with a poem from Eduardo Carrillo. In Colorado, my father scoured and stacked dishes. In a Tex-Mex restaurant, his co-workers, unable to utter his name, renamed him Jalapeno. If I ask for a goldfish, he spits a glob of phlegm into a jar of water. The silver letters on his black belt spell sangron. Once, borracho, at dinner, he said Jesus wasn't a snowman. Arriba, Durango, arriba, Arizaba. Packed into a car trunk, he was smuggled into the States. Frijolero, greaser, in Tucson he branded cattle, he slept in a stable, the horse blankets oddly fragrant, wood smoke, lilac, he's an illegal, I'm an illegal American. Once in a grove of saguaro at dusk, I slept next to him. I woke with his thumb in my mouth. No que no tronabas, pistolita. He learned English by listening to the radio. The first 4 words he memorized. In God we trust. The 5th, percolate. Again and again I borrow his clothes. He calls me Scarecrow. In Oregon he picked apples, Brayburn, Jonagold, Camille. Nightly to entertain his cuates around the campfire, he strummed a guitarra, sang corridos, arriba, Durango, arriba, Orizaba. Packed into a car trunk, he was smuggled into the States. Greaser, beaner, once baracho at breakfast, he said, the heart can only be broken once, like a window. No mames, his favorite belt buckle, an aguila perched on a nopal. If he laughs out loud, his hands tremble. Bugs Bunny wants to deport him. Cesar Chavez wants to deport him. When I walk through the desert, I wear his shirt. The gaze of the moon stitches the buttons to my shirt to my skin. The snake hisses. The snake is torn. And then I'll read the poem that I wrote, which is a true story about my grandmother non-stop talking about death. The Unbearable. My grandmother only wants to tell me who died and how. She tells me of all the traffic accidents as if she was reading a menu to me out loud. The man who was decapitated while driving a tractor trying to make space for a new Stop and Shop. The woman whose eyelashes started growing inward until it was so painful all she could do was lie there and scream, and then finally not scream anymore. Over the kitchen table, I told her to stop it. She didn't understand why it was making me upset. It's what happens, and she was just trying to explain. In my mind, I had already left the room and walked up the street to the house that I grew up in and laid down on the green cement. In the shade, the cement was cool and hard. My old cat Smoke came up and sat on my chest, the way she never would when she was alive. And in the trees, there was a woodpecker and a squirrel bustling on their branches, seeming very alien and small. I have a friend who says that sometimes when she thinks about animals, she starts to cry. And right now, even my dog is dying. Yesterday, when someone was petting him, he collapsed as if the weight of the hand was too much, as if being touched, even in love, was unbearable. I didn't want to end on that one because it's just so dark. So we'll end with a poem by the beloved Jennifer L. Knox, Modern Poetry. Mostly gray clouds, some color, as battleships, suburban Seattle. In the bottom left corner, a clown, his red nose a sudden start or stoplight. Only his comic prosthesis is clear, the rest a blur. Everyone gave up on faces in the 80s, too hard. The clown ends at neck, his body fades to clouds. Then, like a ghost in the center, white outline of a bitchin' 70s muscle car, hood popped. Its centrality and size suggest deep feeling. Questions for discussion. 1. Look at the clown under a magnifying glass. What is the word that best describes his expression? Type the word in your blog. Does the word change when you smoke pot? 2. If you were standing in the poem, would you be wearing a t-shirt or a parka? 3. The airline on which you're flying home to visit a dying loved one, but can you really love it all? What good is your love? Suddenly loses a wing and begins plummeting towards Earth. What do you grab on the way down? The cloud, the clown, or the muscle car? 4. When was your last good kiss and why? Thanks.
Camille Rankine's first book of poetry, Incorrect, Merciful Impulses, is forthcoming from Copper Canyon Press. She is the author of the chapbook Slow Dancing with Tripwire, selected by Cornelius Eady for the Poetry Society of America's 2010 Chapbook Fellowship. She is assistant director of the MFA program in creative writing at Manhattanville College, and she lives in New York.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you to Brett and Lynn for including me tonight and in this anthology. Like everyone said tonight, I would have loved to have had this book when I was a teenager. I just remember when I was a teenager how hard it was to find poetry that I loved, but the ones that I found were just like so important to me. So it's exciting to be in this anthology and to hopefully be a part of children's and teenagers' lives like that, in that significant way. And this also is like such an amazing collection. Like I was just flipping through looking for poems to read tonight, and I was like, oh my God, I love that poem. It's my favorite poem, like over and over again. So it's exciting to be, in that company. So I'm gonna start by reading two poems that are not mine. This first one is by Ricardo Alberto Maldonado. It's called America, America. In interiors by nightlight and by our own admission, we levitate. It is our birthright. Suppose the cargo was brought for our welfare, a kind of instruction toward ill, produce we could not afford, an attempt to recover the economy of youth, thoughts about the climate and the waste of our prose. There were trees the storm had reserved, fathers unmannered at the effort. Our theater confused the gods. We observed the trees. We never knew the fluttering made them distinct. And the next one I'll read is by Tanya Olson, Boyishly. The summer, that summer, the summer I was prevented each morning. That summer my eyes matted shut. Sleep, my mother called what joined them. Warm water and a washcloth before I could see. So much water that summer, and then the sun. That summer the fruit ripened rapidly. The drone that summer, a boyish summer. The summer I took the boyish waters, like being drowned that summer. That summer I practiced pulling my t-shirt on like a boy, 2 arms, neck, not a girl, neck, 2 arms. That summer my mother warned, you're getting too big to jump down the stairs like that. All summer I wore orange plaid toughskins and my show me state shirt. Each day that summer I ate French toast for breakfast. Every noon that summer, a hot dog for lunch. That summer, I knocked myself out, jumping down the stairs, and woke thinking, she cannot find me here like this. That summer, I watched our Great Dane get opened up by a bean truck. I never even saw her, mourned the driver. Then she was just there. The summer, my already dead grandmother came to visit, only me. I saw a wolf lope through the corn each dusk that summer. That summer, I threw rocks to make murders of crows rise from the field. The summer I fell in love with their flocking, fell in love with their love. After a rain that summer, tiger shadows gathered in the waterway. Everything circled that summer, everything promising. You may come join us whenever you like. That summer I read folded in the apple tree. That whole summer watched on high. All that sun that summer, and then the rain. The fruit ripened rapidly. It seemed the summer that summer was never done. I love that poem so much that now I'm like, also I'll read mine. I mean, like, I don't even know I could leave. But so I'll close with my poem that's in the anthology, Symptoms of Island. Sometimes in the morning, your hand finds the dip in my side. For the moment, we'll call it happiness. This does not account for weeks spent cursing the apple trees, their sticky bloom. The man on the bus gaping at my slack lip knew. Plump, dumb, stone in my mouth. I'm sure of it. That afternoon you were a brisk, starched thing. We slipped out the back way, screen door banging cruel on my slim-boned grim. Today, like most days, my mind arrives an island, tongue-numb, child wishes ivied onto me. God takes away, it said. Call it what you will. Thank you.
So I'm going to close this out with 2 short poems. I hope that Alex will forgive me. I'm going to read his poem because he didn't. And also because we love it, which is why we put it in our anthology. It's called James Franco. I would sleep with James Franco as Allen Ginsberg, and Allen Ginsberg would sleep with James Franco as James Dean. Woof, woof, and a howl, James Franco makes me growl. At the office, I think about James Franco as more than just performance art. At my desk and in my poems, I take him seriously. I write into him real hard. Woof, woof, and a howl. I even like to watch James Franco scowl. Once at a New York loft party, a famous poet said, "You are your author photo." James Franco, I love you. Such a good poem. So I'm going to finish with one more short one. But just thank you guys again for coming. And thank you also to Sharon November, who's back there. I can't see her. Hi. Who is our editor, and the whole Viking team. It's sort of crazy that a major publishing house was like, yeah, we'll publish a poetry anthology for teenagers, right? That's nuts. So thankfully they took us on, and we're sort of forever grateful. So I'm going to finish with this poem by Katie Lederer called That Everything's Inevitable. That everything's inevitable. That fate is whatever had already happened. The brain, which is as elemental, as sane as the rest of the processing universe is. In this world, I am the surest thing. Scrunched up arms, folded legs, lovely, destitute eyes. Please insert your spare coins. I am filling them up. Please insert your spare vision, your vigor, your vim, but yet I am a Vatic one, as Vatic as the Vatican. In the temper and the tantrum, in the well-kept arboretum, I am waiting, like an animal, for poetry. Thanks.